All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kabbalah Café. Sunday morning, this is the only way to get it started, to get the week started. So today, the title of the class is In Hot Water, and that means that everybody's in trouble. Kidding, joking. But what it does mean is we're going to speak about God's personality. Now, you might be thinking, does Hashem really have a personality? And we'll explore that today. But first...
You got to know what the hot water's got to do.
But,
yeah, this was quite an interesting...
It's all going to come together. But we're going to start in a third direction. You ready?
God's not in the hot water.
No. God put us in hot water. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. Okay, so here's how it starts. We're going to start with the events that happened. Let me do some math here. 3,330, wait for it, 37? 3337? Yeah, years ago, I believe. 2448. 8 plus 7 is 5. 85. I think that's going to be the last digit. I only go by the last digit nowadays. 3,300, I believe. Someone can run the numbers here. 5785 minus 2448, I think, is 3337. I could be wrong. So 3,337-ish years ago, on what we believe, there's a dispute, but what most opinions believe would be the 6th day of the month of Sivan. What happened? We stood at Sinai and got what we call the Torah, specifically the Ten Commandments, which then, of course, was elaborated on by God to Moses, the rest of the Torah. However, there are a few disputes about what happened that day. Not only about the date of what day did it happen. One opinion says it happened on the 7th day of Sivan, just in case you're wondering what the two dates are. Not only about the date, but about what actually was the role of the Jewish people standing at the foot of the mountain, hearing the Ten Commandments. I believe it's the Mechilta, one of the oldest midrashic texts, one of the oldest commentaries, if you could call the midrash a commentary on the Torah, which records a dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva have a dispute about what the people said when God spoke the Ten Commandments. Now you might be thinking, dialogue? Dialogue? Who said dialogue? Monologue. God says the Ten Commandments, and that's it. We're blown away. The Talmud says, I call Dibur Parcha Nishmasa. At every single commandment, right? The souls of the Jewish people flew out, right? The souls departed, and God had to revive them until the Jewish people said, "Can we get off this ride? Like, are we? I love a roller coaster, but it might be genugshein." But yes, according to the Mechilta, the Jewish people responded. What did they respond? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God that took you out of the land of Egypt, the house of slavery. And what did the Jewish people say? Well, I don't. That might be the preamble. But if we construe that to be the commandment to believe in God, the Jewish people said, yes. Honor your mother and father. They said, yes.
I thought they couldn't.
I guess once they got shocked, what is it? The defibrillator, whatever it is.
Yeah, well,
fib. I don't know. Defibrillator. All right. So, honor your mother and father. Yes. Keep the Sabbath holy. Yes. But what happened with the negative commandments? Don't have any other gods. Do not kill. Do not steal. What did they say then? That is the subject of an epic dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael takes a very straightforward approach. He says, al hein hein, al lav lav. He says, for the yeses, they said yes, and for the no's, they said no. Let me break that down. Honor your mother and father, yes. Keep the Sabbath holy, yes. Do not murder, no. You with me?
When they knocked you out.
No, right? No, we won't do. Okay. Rabbi Akiva, however, has a bit of a different take. Rabbi Akiva says, al hein hein, va'al lav hein. They said yes to all 10. The same response.
Yes, we won't do it.
But Believe in God? Yeah. Keep the Sabbath holy? Absolutely. Honor your parents? Yes. Do not kill? Yes. 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 Yes, we won't do it.
So the ones that
You ever have
it's
it-
like a double negative. It's
Right. So it's you're ever in a conversation and someone's like, so you won't so you're not gonna X, Y, or Z, and you're like, do I say yes or no? Right? Do I say yes I won't or no I won't? You ever have that? You ever have that like thought in your head? Like what are you supposed to say, yes or no? Turns out the sages disputed this. Rabbi Akiva, again, just to recap, Rabbi Shmuel said the yeses were yeses, the no's were no's. Yes, yes, no, no, yeah.
Is there a theory that,
Yes or no, sorry.
that they actually repeated?
That repeated the whole commandment, no.
No.
No. Az Yashir, they repeated.
Gotcha.
The song at the sea, they repeated. There's 3 opinions about that.
Right, that confused me.
About the song at the sea. Some say that Moshe led them verse by verse.
Right.
Right? Verse, 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 verse. Some say that he just started the first one and they said, I don't know, there's 3 different opinions. But back here, Rabbi Shmuel says the yeses were yeses, the no's were no's, so there's a differentiation between yeses and no's. Rabbi Akiva says no differentiation, they just said yes for all of them.
And all agree that they actually said something?
Yes,
Like they had to say something?
yes, and no. I'm kidding.
But Moses
Yes,
said
they all
it
agreed
back,
that something was said.
But Moses said it back. So like the first one, they got straight.
The first 2 they got straight. The last 8 they got through Moshe. They heard
God
the
speaks, Moses speaks.
right. Moses speaks. They say, and at some point, I'm not sure after which one, they say yes or no, depending on who you ask. Now, here's the way it works. Here's the way it works. When you have a machlokes or a machloket, when you have a dispute, the one thing you need to know is these things are not coming out of nowhere. In other words, these things are not just in a vacuum or out of nowhere or just randomly the rabbis were opining one way or the other. My gut tells me they would have said yes. No, I believe, my kishkas tell me they would have said no. That's not how this stuff works. It's all based, here, Ramon. It's all based on some sort of underlying deeper idea or deeper truth. Like, for example, now we're going to go parallel to this concept. You have all these hundreds of disputes between Hillel and Shammai, or Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, the academies or the individuals, Hillel and Shammai. Great. So, and typically it boils down to one simple thing. Beit Hillel typically lines with a more lenient, a more giving, a more understanding, kind, considerate way of approaching things. And Beit Shammai typically takes a bit of a tougher stance, a little bit of a harsher stance. Beit Shammai says no, Beit Hillel says yes, not all the time. But typically, Beit Hillel's camp is aligned with leniency, and Beit Shammai with stringency. And it all goes back to something even deeper, one could say. Like the dispute regarding Hanukkah. So 1 second. I know that I'm unspooling a lot of ideas. Everything is going to come back together again. Don't think we're going to go and not get back. I'm casting a lot of lines. We're going to pull it back. Don't worry. Trust the process. So, the dispute regarding Hanukkah, how you light the Hanukkah menorah. So now we all do it like the Academy of Hillel, but there is another opinion. Hillel says you light 1 candle the first night, 2 the second night, 3 the third night, etc. Just, add 1 per night. Beit Shammai says, no, you start with 8. And every night you take away 1. First night 8, second night 7. No one does that. Because the halacha, the law, accords with Beit Hillel. And that's how and no one practices like Beit Shammai. It's not the halacha, it's not the way we roll. But it's an opinion. The question is, why do they hold like that? So famously, the Talmud asked that question. Why is it? What's the rationale? Now, the Talmud doesn't always ask what the rationale behind a dispute is, but it does enough times that we know that even when it doesn't, we should be asking the question, what is that rationale? You with me on that? So the Talmud asks, what's the rationale? The Talmud gives 2 different possible rationales, but I'll stick with one right now. That Beit Shammai, the Academy of Shammai goes after Koach, and Beit Hillel goes after Poel. Koach and Poel. What's Koach and Poel? Koach means potential, and Poel means actual. So the question is, first night of Hanukkah, how many days of the miracle do you have? I mean, back in the day, we're not, right? How many? No, in actuality.
1 day.
1. Second, 2, day 2 of the miracle. Good morning. 3, 3, 4, 4. But if you look at the potential, right? If you look at the potential, it's very different. Why is it different? Because the first night of Hanukkah, how many potential days of the miracle do you have? You have 8. The second day, you don't have 8 more days of potential miracle. You have 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When it first happened, they didn't know there was.
Right. But now in retrospect,
That makes more sense.
Oh.
Exactly.
Because they didn't know in the first day, they didn't know it was going for sure there'd be a second day.
so you're saying it makes sense to go by the actual.
Yes.
Right. Good. But as they establish, a year later when they establish it as a festival, right? So
Now you're looking.
now you have a dispute about how to establish it. Should it be established based on what you have in front of you or about what's going to happen? A similar dispute between Hillel and Shammai regarding when a honeycomb, not the cereal, when an actual honeycomb becomes susceptible to ritual impurity. Now, one of the things regarding ritual impurity is that for something to become ritually impure, it has to be like food can become ritually impure if it comes in contact with something impure. It doesn't become impure out of nowhere. If it comes in contact with something impure, it can become impure. But that's only if it's a food. What if it's a honeycomb? Meaning the honey is still inside the honeycomb.
Right.
So according to, it would be, one is potential, one is actual. According to Beit Shammai, the moment you have designated it or decided that you're going to crush it, I guess a honeycomb, is with the bees, no?
Right.
Yeah. So the moment you take it out and you're like,
Spiracles, so they're sealed.
oh, right. So they're sealed. So there's no liquid yet. You can't eat it yet. So the question is, at what point is it considered Michael? Is it considered food? At what point is it food? So according to Beit Shammai, I might be getting it wrong, but I think I'm right. I don't have the source in front of me. My recollection is, I believe according to Beit Shammai, the moment you take it out and you decide, all right, this is it. Right, I'm going to crush this. No, I'm kidding. Right, we're gonna make the moment that happens. Already potentially, it's food, even though it's not actually. You can't eat it yet, but already potentially it's there. So therefore, it has the designation. So if something impure comes in contact with it, it already becomes impure because it's considered food. According to Beit Hillel, no. The only when you've actually, I guess, crushed it, squeezed it, whatever, and broken the wax, exactly, and now you actually have honey, only then is it actually something that is considered a food item and can become ritually impure. Again, potential or actual. Do you look at the potential or you look at the actual? Okay. Getting back to the other dispute. So, good morning. So Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, they disagree as to what the Jews responded by the 10 Commandments. According to Rabbi Yishmael, again, just to recap, because we went off into a different direction, coming back. According to Rabbi Yishmael, hein, lav. Yeses were yeses and noes were noes. According to Rabbi Akiva, for everything they said yes. Why? Okay, let's break this down further. Now, we know already from the paradigm of Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai, that you always look for underlying reasons, right? Now, potential and actual, that seems to be an underlying rationale for Hillel and Shammai. Now, why is that? It's connected with their souls, with their soul personalities. We're going to get back there in a second. But when it comes to Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, we need to know a little bit more. So we need at least one more dispute, and turns out we have one about Sinai as well. And I think it's appropriate. The reason why I'm choosing these examples is because, of course, we have the holiday of Shavuot coming up next week, next Sunday night. And so it's appropriate to talk about the upcoming festival. So here we go. The second dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael.
So sorry.
No worries.
I tried turning it off, but it didn't go off.
No worries. The second dispute regarding between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva about Sinai is as follows. It's about what did they see and what did they hear. There's a verse that says V'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot ve'et halapidim ve'et hahar ashen, which translates as the entire nation, all the people, they saw the sounds. They saw the sounds and the lightning and the Smoky Mountain. Not the Smoky Mountains, but the mountain that was smoking.
Smoking.
That's what they saw. Now that's weird. Why is it weird? Because it says they saw the sounds. How do you see sounds? Now you tell me they saw the lightning. That makes sense. We've all seen lightning.
Wow.
You could see a mountain that's smoking. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're in, Hawaii, or if you're Mount Olympus. Didn't Mount Olympus, Washington State at one point? Mount Helena, whatever that was. Helena.
Yeah.
Helena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So it's possible to see a mountain that's smoking. It's possible. It's possible. But what does it mean that they saw the sounds? What kind of sounds?
They see the wavelength.
Right. So what does that mean? Rabbi Shmuel says, nah, they didn't see sounds. They saw the sights and they heard the sounds. That's what it means. It's poetic license. Don't take it so literally. It says they saw the sounds and the lightning. It means they saw the lightnings. They heard the sounds. The Torah is like speaking. It's kind of mushing things together. Don't get too caught up in everything. They saw what was seen and they heard what was heard, and that's it. No, everything was normal. Rabbi Kiva says no. Rabbi Kiva says no. You got to read it the way it's written. They saw the sounds, and then according to one girsa, according to one version of the text, he goes even a step further. Not only did they see the sounds, but they heard the sights.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? They heard the lightning, not the thunder. So they saw, right? They saw. Wait.
Yeah.
They heard the lightning and they saw the thunder.
Is it not like children?
I don't know about children. I don't know if children have
Children can interpret differently, like they'll say it differently.
There's actually a diagnosed issue where things are flipped, but it's not typically it's not your average situation. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, and just to get the position straight here, according to Rabbi Shmuel, everything was as normal, business as usual. They saw the sights, heard the sounds, saw the sights. According to Rabbi Kiva, everything was flipped. They saw the sounds and they heard the sights. What does that mean? So I want to share with you an explanation. I'm sure there are other explanations, but here's an explanation based on Kabbalah and the deeper teachings of Torah. And here's how it goes. What does it mean to see? What does it mean to hear? You know, there's a phrase, there's a cliche, there's an idiom that says, seeing is
Believing.
What does that mean? Seeing is believing. Seeing is believing means that when you see something, you know it to be correct. No one can tell you didn't see it. So if you saw a UFO, right? If you saw a UFO abduct your friend, someone says no UFOs, you're like, I was there. I saw it. They beamed up the guy in the car next to me. I'm not being serious about the beaming up UFO thing. I'm just saying.
But we know from eyewitness testimony
That it's wrong.
they all see it differently.
Good. But here's the thing. But if you see it, you at least are certain that you saw it. Now, is it correct? It might not be correct. You don't know what those lights were, right? How do you all know that you saw lights? The interpretation is where things get a little fuzzy. But typically, seeing is believing. Now, here's the thing. If you see, I'm just going to give an example. If you see let's think of something that would be, whatever. If you see something, you believe it because you saw it. Now, what happens if somebody tells you what they saw? You'll never believe what I saw. Now, either you believe them or you don't believe them. That's a choice. Because you have no way of being certain that they saw it. You would have to trust them. Are you with me on this? Now, and you might trust them, but what if somebody else comes and says, that person just told you that? I was there. That didn't happen. So now what do you believe? Now you don't know. Why? Because you didn't see it. Hearsay. This is why ein aid na'aseh dayan. This is why a witness cannot be a judge in Jewish law. Because a judge always has to have
Positive.
380.
always has to have objectivity. You cannot be objective if you saw it. Once you see it, all objectivity is out the window. You can't. In other words, the judge has to be only working off of hearsay, so that you weigh and you measure which story is more plausible. Try to figure out the truth. If you see it, you're not objective. You can't be a dayan. You cannot be a judge anymore. Ein eid na'as a dayan. A judge cannot have been a witness. A witness cannot be a judge. Getting back to the story. So the things that we see are the things to us that are certain. The things that we hear are the things that are not so certain. They might be true. They might not be true. I believe it until maybe I get other evidence to the contrary. In other words, if somebody that I typically trust tells me something, I might believe it. But first of all, I'll believe it internally with a grain of salt. I believe your story, but I'm reserving the right to decide at some point not to believe you. Why? Because I don't know that you're the only game in town. Just because you're telling me something with absolute certainty, that makes it true? How do I know? Now, for you it's true, maybe. But how do I know it's true? Because you told me? Now, that's a very high demand, that I should believe everything that you tell me. That you have an opinion, that you have a belief, that I should believe that. Take it easy. Take it easy. I might tend to say, I might nod, but I'm going to reserve the right to be open to hearing another perspective and then making a decision. Why? That's how hearing works. Now, if I see something, I'm certain. Like if I see it, I'll be certain of what I saw. You can't tell me that I didn't see it because I saw it. But you want me to have the same level of certainty over something you told me? Why? Just because you said it, I should believe it? Why? Because you're that trustworthy? Maybe. Maybe you made a mistake. I didn't see it. You saw it, or something. You're reporting it to me. That's one thing. But I'm going to reserve the right to cancel that the moment I hear maybe some opposing testimony. Maybe I'll say, you know what? I choose to believe that narrative. It's like kids come to you with a story. He hit me first. No, he hit me first. I don't know. I wasn't there. How do I know? How do I know who hit the other one first? If I see it, that's one thing. But if I'm hearing a story, how do I know? Have you ever had that? You ever have that? Forget hitting, whatever it is. It's like, he took this from me. I wasn't there. So now I have no idea. So that is, yeah, exactly, right? So this is the difference between seeing and hearing. And it's reflected in halacha, like I mentioned, ein eid na'as a dayan, a witness cannot become a judge. It's reflected in many different areas. Seeing is believing, hearing is plausible, could be. I don't know if it happened, could be. I might believe you, choose to believe you. I don't have to believe you. I could choose to believe someone else, maybe. I don't know. Sure, whatever. Doesn't cost me anything, I'll nod, right? Sure. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. You're telling me a story. Could be. There's no way that I'll know that ever happened just because you told me it happened. How do I know? Okay. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Right. If we apply this to life, how does this work? I know we're talking about life, but if we apply it to spirituality, there are certain things that we know because we know. It's basically the difference between first-hand knowledge and second-hand knowledge, right? First-hand versus second-hand. Do you know because you know it, because you've seen it, or do you know because someone told you about it? Let's apply this to the physical reality and the spiritual reality. What do we know firsthand and what do we know secondhand? Right? The table. You believe in or you know?
You
know. Yeah. This cup. You got to take someone else's word for it or you see it. What about God?
We haven't seen it. Although we do in our mind.
We tell ourselves absolutely firsthand, but is it firsthand? Is it not a little bit secondhand? Yeah. It's a little bit secondhand. It's like, do we see God with the same visceral clarity and tangibility as we see this little thing? This little microphone pouch case? This we know, right? That there's a creator, God, the way that believe, pretty sure it's true, like 99.999, I might say 100%. But is it as real as the tuna sandwich sitting in front of you? I know no one has a tuna sandwich here, but theoretically, right? Is it as real as that? Is it? I would argue there's no way that it can be. It just can't. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Sandra. Good morning. All right. Ivanka, yeah, sit anywhere. You with me on this? So there's certain things you know. Why? Because what do you mean? How do I know? I keep on choosing different items. So much fun that I have accessories, right? How do I know that this box is real? How do I know?
You can feel it.
Because I'm holding it. How do I know that God is real? Because I read it in a book. Because someone told me that God. How do I know? Because I believe in God. Are you sure? 100%. 100%. I know God. Absolutely. How? Because I read about it. Because someone said God is real. And I believe them. So of course God is real. But do you see a difference there? Someone says, no, but I've seen God. I've 100% seen God. 100% seen God. You know what's crazy? You know what's wild? I'm not trying to cast doubts here. That would be very un-rabbi-like. But you know what? I've never heard of an atheist in boxes. There's no other plausible explanation. This is a box. There's no deniers, no box deniers. It's not a thing. There's no one that denies boxes. I don't believe in boxes. I don't believe boxes are real. Believe boxes are real? Hello, right here. Yalla, right here. You know where there are people who deny and who don't believe? Yeah, but you know for sure God is real. Of course, I saw it's. You know what? The other guy will say, I haven't seen God. I haven't seen God. I've seen life. You're telling me you want to extrapolate that life is God? Okay, I hear that works for you. It doesn't work for I didn't see God. I saw boxes. I didn't see God. You with me on this? What happened at Sinai? What happened at Sinai? According to Rabbi Akiva, you know what happened? Here's what happened. They saw what was heard. That which is normally heard, that which is usually believed in as a secondhand, tale, they saw with their own eyes. They saw the sounds.
Closed captions.
Huh? Closed caption. Right. Exactly. But it's more than that.
Visualize that really.
But it's more, right. That's actually one. I like that actually. That's great. That's fantastic. YouTube now will throw captions in our videos. You can watch my videos. They'll throw in captions. They have no idea what I'm saying in Hebrew. They have no idea. If I say Kabbalist, they put capitalist. They're not sure what's going on. They're not sure. They're not sure about the captions here. This is going to go on YouTube. And they will probably get many words here wrong. Here's the point. The point is that at Sinai, truth was revealed to those assembled. And we believe that all of our souls were there. If not in bodies, then just souls, disembodied souls. But at Sinai, everyone in attendance saw the truth. They saw what's really what? They saw God. What does it mean they saw God? Yeah. At that point, just like this, you see it. You don't have to believe. No one has to believe that this is real. It's right here. I feel like David Copperfield. And now it's gone now. Right? This is you don't have to believe that it's here. You see it. They saw God at Sinai. Revelation at Sinai means they saw God. Meaning they saw what was typically heard. What's typically only a rumor. God, believe in God. Someone once said that there's a God. Okay? And if someone tells me there's no God, I don't know what this is. No, I have a plausible explanation behind everything, including life itself. Great. Now what do I believe in? At Sinai, what's normally heard, the rumor, was corroborated. They saw it. And what about the other way? This is where it gets even more trippy. They heard what was normally seen. You with me on this one? The physical reality became only a rumor. They're like, oh, the mountain itself, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I believe in a mountain.
What's the benefit in that?
God was so true, the mountain was less real. They saw God, not the mountain. Yeah. It's like the Matrix.
Like you're going
Like they
from
saw-
one dimension
yeah, they saw the
to
code.
another
The mountain, I don't know if there's an actual mountain. I think it's just code. I think it's just God. Mountain, yeah, I don't know. The wristwatch, assuming they had wristwatches back then, 3,337 years ago. I don't know if this is real. I don't know if this is real. It might just be God. By the way, that's why one girsa, that's why one version of the text doesn't have that second half to it. Because that's even deeper. That's even deeper. That God should be true to you, that you should see God as one. I mean, that's also crazy. But then to have that go so far as to upend your current reality, not just to add another truth, but to distruthify, making up new words as we go on today, as to untruth, unseat the truths that you currently believe in, that's even deeper, right? To unmoor, to kind of like rock your current understanding of reality, that's even, to add another element to the repertoire, God is real, God is as real as this is real, okay, that's level one. But to then say God is so, now I see that God is real, and this is now not real, ooh. That's what one Girsa just says, that he said, Roin et kolot. The other one says, or Ron et nishma, and Shomin et nira is the deeper level. To hear what's normally seen, that's even deeper. You guys with me so far? So what happens at Sinai? Like what happened at Sinai? So the simple answer is, we got the 10 Commandments. And then the rest of the Torah is developed. Great. Okay? That's on a very basic, that's a very functional level. But on a much deeper level, what happened? We gained a truth, a perception of truth, of God, that heretofore beforehand was not available to the average person. Yeah, did Adam know God? Yeah. Did Noah know God? I know a guy.
Yeah.
Did Noah know God? Get it, Noah guy? It's not fun. Yes. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, sure. Moses, yes. But the collective, right? The regular you and I's, not to put us down. The exceptional you and I's, no. How would we have seen God? In what context? At Sinai, we saw. So that's Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Shmuel say? I already said his opinion before. He said no. They heard what they heard. They saw what they saw. Business as usual. So nothing happened at Sinai. He says no. They saw God. They saw God. But their experience was integrated within their normative faculties. They didn't flip. It didn't upend everything. In other words, they had this is going to be probably the trickiest part to explain. It's more of a feeling than I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it exactly like, formulaically on a board, written out as a formula mathematically. But here's what Rabbi Shmuel says: the purpose of life is not to leave your normative parameters of what you hear and what you see. The purpose of life is to integrate your belief in God into your day-to-day life. So no, is it all about seeing what you hear and hearing what you see? Is it about like flipping everything where God is the only truth and this world is false? That's not a way to live. You can't live like that. You got to live. This is real. This is normal, right? We have tables and chairs and floors and ceilings, and it's like we have to live with it within a normative reality. Within that reality, to do the right thing. So yes, did the Jewish people at Sinai gain this profound awareness of God? Yes, but it was ultimately integrated within their seeing is seeing and hearing is hearing reality. Yes.
I was gonna say it's interesting that you were saying that because while I fully believe in sort of the first interpretation and where it's like maybe a sensory thing, your senses kind of get upgraded, like seeing wavelengths or something like that. There's also a question of how do you even go back to living normal life after an experience like that?
Right.
B, as we saw further on, is not go to disobey or forget or something like that, after a situation like that. So it kind of makes a lot of sense that it's more so of an
And I think that's the argument of Rabbi Shmuel. He's like, what's the point of that? What's the point of having such an out-of-body experience that you can't even integrate it within your day? If it's like if it's an experience where the only way you experienced it is by, completely crossing your senses and like stepping outside of your normative reality, then ultimately, is there a value in that? Or is it just like almost like an out-of-body or an out-of-sensory experience? So like, what's the point? So Rabbi Shmuel says, no, it had to have been an integrated experience. They saw what they saw, they heard what they heard, but what they heard was a little bit more true than what it normally is. They heard God, speak the Ten Commandments, but they heard it but for themselves. And so for them it was true. But they didn't have this cross-sensory experience. They were integrated. And so, my friends, we now have two disputes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Again, to recap, because we're gonna put them together in a second. To recap, dispute number one between the same two rabbis. Dispute number one, Rabbi Shmuel says, when it came to the Ten Commandments, when the Jews responded, they said yes to the positive commandments and no to the negative commandments. God says, I am God. We said yes. God says, keep the Sabbath holy. We say yes. God says, honor your mother and father. We said yes. God says, do not murder. We said no. Do not steal. No. Yeses, no nos. Rabbi Akiva, however, says, for all of the commandments, they said yes. I am God, yes. Honor your mother and father, yes. Do not kill, yes. Meaning, yes, I won't. Do not steal, yes. For all of them, yes. That's dispute number one. Dispute number two, Rabbi Shmuel says, they saw what they saw, they heard what they heard. Rabbi Akiva says, they saw what they heard, and they heard what they saw. It was crossed. What's going on? So, to understand this, you have to introduce the final piece of the puzzle. Who were Rabbi Shmuel, and who was Rabbi Shmuel, and who was Rabbi Akiva? Well, Rabbi Akiva, I think we know a little bit about Rabbi Akiva. I actually did a very in-depth bio at Davening 101 2 weeks ago. I'll go over it very briefly, very, very briefly. But let's first start with Rabbi Shmuel. Who was Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Shmuel was, in his day, the Kohen Gadol. It's a famous story. Tihir Rabbi Shmuel as Atzmai purified himself when the 10 martyrs, when the word came from Rome that they were going to murder the sages. He purified himself, went up to the heavenly chambers to inquire whether this was indeed the will of God. He was the high priest. He was the Kohen Gadol, or as I like to call that position, the big kahuna, right? He was the Kohen Gadol. Conversely, who was Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva was certainly one of the greatest sages of all time, but he came from a family of individuals who had converted to Judaism. Very different background. Rabbi Shmuel was a Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Akiva was the child of those who had converted to Judaism. What's the difference? Listen to this. Here's how Kabbalah explains the difference in soul. Rabbi Shmuel's soul was all about bringing heaven down to earth. He was a Kohen Gadol. It was about bringing heaven down to earth. Rabbi Akiva, having come from a background that wasn't always connected, he was somebody who lived a very restless life, looking for a connection. He was always not about bringing heaven down to earth, but lifting earth to heaven, a different direction. By the way, in each of our lives, we have to have both modalities. Torah study is an opportunity to bring heaven down to earth, right? We're channeling divine wisdom into her. We're learning God's word. We're bringing heaven down to earth. When we pray, we elevate ourselves to God, right? Two different directions. Prayer is an act of ascent. Torah study is an act of descent. Not us, but bringing down God's word into our minds, integrating it into our reality. So comes along Rabbi Shmuel, who is of the integration. And he says, at Sinai, we didn't get out of our senses. We integrated into our senses. You with me on this? Rabbi Shmuel says, they heard what they heard. They saw what they saw. The yeses were yeses. The no's were no. It was very normal. It was very understandable. The divine experience at Sinai needed to be, and thus was, integrated within their normative lives. The yeses were yeses, the noes were noes, the sights were sights, the sounds were sounds. It was all normal. It was amazing, but it was all normal. Why? Because the goal is to integrate it, to change how we live right here, not to escape this reality. Rabbi Akiva, the last moment of his life, he was being tortured, murdered by the Romans. They were combing his flesh with iron combs, literally ripping him apart physically. And in the final moments, he was saying the Shema. And his students said, to this extent, that even in the last moments you're saying Shema. He said, yeah, all my days, Kol Yamai, all my days I was wondering, would I ever have the opportunity, or how could I fulfill the Torah's directive to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, even if they take your soul, to still remain dedicated, devoted to God, even to the point of death, if that's what it comes to. And I was wondering all my life, will I ever be able to fulfill this, to be so dedicated to God, even in my final moments, and now I have the opportunity. I shouldn't say the Shema. The Shema is where that is. Right? You should love the Lord your God, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, afilo notalas nafshecha, even if they take your soul. So what was he about? He was all about escape almost. Something higher, transcendence. So Rabbi Akiva was about transcendence. So what does he say? He says, it's not about the yes and the no's. Everything is yes. In a state of transcendence, there's no no. Everything is yes. I am the Lord your God. Yes. Honor your parents. Yes. Do not murder. Yes. In other words, it's not about how I'm going to fulfill the commandment by not doing something. It's about me saying to you, God, yes, whatever you say. You with me? It's not about how I'm going to do it. It's about you. It's about escaping myself. It's not about, well, this one I'm going to do, this one I'm not going to do. So I should be saying yeses and no's. That's about me. That's about my action. It's not about me right now. It's about you, God. To you, God, I say, whatever you tell me, whether it's to do something or not do something, I'm going to say the same thing to you. Yes, I'm all in. That's escape. When it comes to the senses, they saw what they heard. They heard what they saw. It was an out-of-body experience. Rabbi Akiva is all about the transcendence, all about not the escapism for the sake of escapism, but he was about the transcendence, about ascending, climbing higher. No one comes, even in his own life, forget his parents. In his own life, he was raised without any knowledge of Torah until the age of 40. No one goes from that, from Jewishly illiterate shepherd, to greatest, one of the, got to be top 5. I don't know, I'm not ranking them. Right, one of the greatest Torah scholars and teachers of all time. You don't get there without a fierce passion to ascend, without a fierce passion to climb. If you're already born in royalty, the Kohen Gadol, if you're already born into that kind of spiritual place, then what's your focus? Bring it down to the people, right? How do I share this love, this gift with those around me? It's all about integration. When you come from a background that doesn't have that, then you're striving. When you already have that, then hopefully you're integrated. That's Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel, the integrator. Rabbi Akiva, the striver. So yeah, the integrator says, no out-of-body experience at Sinai. What would be the point? Out-of-body? It's about in the body. You got to see what you see and hear what you hear. Can't be confused. You got to be of sound mind, of sound faculties to integrate it. The yeses are yeses, the no's are no's. Some things you need to do, some things you're not supposed to do. That's Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva, he's the ascender. He's the dreamer. You can't go where he goes without dreaming. He's the dreamer. And so he says, you know what? They were all yeses. God, I'm with you. Whatever you say, yes. You want me to do something? Yes. You don't want me to do something? Also, yes. It's not about me thinking about, am I going to do something or not do something? I'm always doing something. I'm doing your will. That's always a yes. Whether it's me doing something or not doing something, that's technical. The truth of what's happening is that in this moment, I'm saying yes to you. Whatever you want, God. That's why it's always a yes. And regarding the senses are crossed. Why? Because how can you not be out of body in such an out of body experience? This is one illustration of how deep one can go when it comes to Talmudic disputes. Disputes that might even seem like they have no halachic, practical ramification. This is not about how to light a menorah or when your honeycomb becomes susceptible to impurity. This is about what did they say at Sinai, which one person might say, I don't know what they said, but I'm sure it was great. I'm sure whatever they said was perfect, right? What did they hear? What did they see? I don't know. Does it affect me now? But when you study a little bit of Kabbalah, you realize that disputes are not random. Disputes are not just irrelevant or once upon a time, but they reflect a worldview. And to this day, they reflect a worldview. There are those that always seek groundedness, and there are those that seek a little bit climbing out a little bit, climbing up. There are those that seek concreteness and those that seek abstraction, different personalities. Which one is right? In this case, I don't know that it's about right or not right. It's just two different modalities, right? We're not ranking. This is not a BuzzFeed article, right? Great sages ranked. Who's going to be number one, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel? It's not about ranking who's greater than the other. It's about recognizing there's two different styles. There's the style of Rabbi Shmuel, the integrator, and the style of Rabbi Akiva, the dreamer, the ascender, the transcender. If that's a thing, right? There's two different realities. In our lives, we need both. Yeah.
So it sounds like this ties in. Rabbi New and I used to always have an argument with Rabbi Bolt about why is a convert, you say a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. Okay. So a convert, the question became, where did this neshama come from?
Mm.
So one theory is their neshama was at Sinai.
Right.
Rabbi Broyd said that's Hasidic. So we said, okay, where did it come from then? So he said he really could answer completely, but the basic concept you look it up is, well, something happens when you convert. God is observing you, and somehow that puts that
Generates
a new neshama. So you have this is the same issue, because if Akiva got it later, he's seeing it completely different.
Well, he himself didn't convert. His parents
Right.
were the ones who converted.
So even from there, yeah. So where is he at on that cycle? His neshama wasn't
Right.
there. If their parents was neshama there, then his neshama
Right.
was there. If they weren't there, then he got it later, and it's a different approach to it than he actually was there. And that's why he's saying, well, no, it's
You gotta strive a little bit. I hear that.
I see it.
Although I do subscribe to the theory that all the souls.
Yeah,
were
yeah, I
inside.
understand.
No, but I hear what you're saying. But I think it's amazing because you have this concept of a Kohen Gadol whose very identity is he's like in the inner circle. Literally, the Kodesh HaKadosh on Yom Kippur, he's in the innermost space. He's not climbing anywhere. He's already there. So his work is to take that and bring it down. But then you have somebody who is a little bit of an outsider, whether it's his parents who had to strive to become Jewish, or whether it's himself in his own life to strive to become a scholar. You have somebody who is striving, who's climbing to get somewhere. It's a completely different angle. Yeah. I think it's a very powerful idea. Oh, and I was just kind of wrapping up on a practical level. We need both modalities in our own lives. We need moments of transcendence and moments of integration. In Kabbalah, we call this ratzo and shuv. There are moments of inspiration, like Yom Kippur would not be a day of integration. Yom Kippur is typically a day of transcendence. Yom Kippur is typically a day of, you step outside the normative. Yom Kippur is a day of fasting. You're not eating. You're not taking care of your body in the normative way. You're stepping outside of yourself. Yom Kippur is definitely a Rabbi Akiva day. Whereas, even though ironically it would be Rabbi Shmuel that would be doing the service on Yom Kippur, but it's a day for the people about getting out, for us, the people. We are the people, right? It's a day about getting outside of ourselves, transcendence. But ultimately the goal is then integration, to bring it down. Tomorrow morning when I wake up, the day after Yom Kippur, am I different than I was before Yom Kippur 2 days ago? Right? Yom Kippur is the 10th day of Tishrei. The 11th day of Tishrei. Am I different than the 9th day or am I the same guy? Right? I always say, I don't know, maybe to myself I say this. Like if after Tishrei, if after the whole month of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, the 10 days of repentance, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, if after a full month of holidays, from every extreme, every emotion, and all prayers and books and study and tears and laughter and joy and dancing, if after all of that, if the only thing we walk away with is a mash of Haruach Amar Geshem, then that's a waste. We change because over the course of the holiday,
That's why you have to have Shana Rabbah,
the integration,
it doesn't have, you don't have to have it all complete. It has
right?
to be complete by
But I'm saying if at the end of the month, the only thing that's different is that we're praying for rain now, that's the only change, that's a missed opportunity. That's the only thing that changed is now we switched and asking for dew, and now we're asking for rain. Come on. It's gotta be more. It's gotta be more of a thing than that. Can't just walk out with a mash of Haruach Amar Geshem prayer. I mean, that's way too easy. We didn't need to go through all that, all the emotional stuff, just to change the nusach, to change the liturgy, and start asking for rain for the farms in Israel. That we could have done anyway. But the point is that the integration is so critical. So Rabbi Shmuel's integration perspective is very critical. It's not about who's right. Ultimately, they're both right. Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai, one is chesed, one is gevurah. So who's right? Chesed or gevurah? The answer is they're both right. Which brings us back to our title topic, which is in hot water. Many months ago, we read a medrash in this class. And the medrash said, in the beginning, when God was first creating the world, he wanted to do it with midat hadin, with his attribute of justice. But he saw that the world would not endure. The world could not
The programming didn't work.
sustain it. The world couldn't hold it. So he mixed within it midat harachamim, his attribute of compassion and mercy. And it worked. Comes along the Midrash. The Midrash says, let me give you a parable. There was a king who had fine crystal glasses. Not just glasses. Not just regular drinkware. This is not the Amazon or IKEA drinkware. This is like the fine, I don't even know that's where I don't get stuff from. Where do you get the other stuff from? I don't know. This is not the fine crystal of, where do they make crystal? Is it France? They make crystal in France?
Rosenthal.
Crystal.
Baccarat.
I need baccarat. But I need really fine. I need the type of crystal that if you go to that hot water dispenser thing and you put water in it, it's going to shatter. That's how thin. That's how fine I need this crystal to be in our imagination. We're talking about the crystal of crystal, right? This is the type of stuff that's so sensitive that any temperature, anything that's too hot, it's going to explode the thing like a fine tenor. Tenor? Did I get that right? Right? That's what I want. Right? That's the type of glass that we're talking about here. Comes on the Medrash and says, there was a king. And he had these types of, because when you're a king, what don't you have? You have those glasses. And if you don't, somebody will make them for you because you're the king, right? So the king wanted to pour in hot water. Hot water. Where have I heard that before? The king wanted to pour in hot water.
He didn't want to get in hot water.
Right. Well, he wanted to get us in hot water. We'll see in a second. King wanted to pour in hot water, but he saw that if he puts in hot, but he realized if he pours in hot water, they're going to shatter. He says, all right, I'll pour in cold water. Yeah, but if you pour in cold water, you know what happens when you pour a cold Coca-Cola in a glass? You know what happens? First of all, it sounds great. No, but what else happens?
A lot of air.
A lot of bubbles come up, but what else happens if it's really ice cold? It gets a little foggy, a little condensation. Now, if you're like you and I, it's like, great, give me more condensation. It's dripping, it's great. But you know what? In a king's palace, I don't know that you would walk into a king's palace and pick up a glass and there's like a wet thing around that doesn't seem like the way it's gonna go. It doesn't seem like the way it's gonna roll. So what happens? The king says, I can't do hot. I can't do cold. What do? He mixed the hot with the cold. What do we call that? Good to see you. Come on in, hot seat. Or we're right there. What happens? We call that, lukewarm. I don't know who Luke is, but right, it's right. It's just room temperature, whatever it is, and the cups were fine. Comes on the measure, says that's a parable. God wanted to create the world in hot water, right? With hot water, in hot water, but he saw that it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to be able to sustain itself. It's going to shatter. It's going to break. So then he says, what about cold? Cold is not going to look nice. So he mixed the two. What does that mean? You ready? We talked about this months ago. What does it mean? Originally, God wanted to create the world with midat hadin, very strict. In other words, it's going to be very exact, and if anyone steps out of line, then they're eliminated. Wow, that sounds really scary. It does sound really scary because it is really scary. Imagine if God is the source of life, which we posit he is, right? So the only way that you're alive is if you're connected. The moment you disconnect, the moment you kind of like unplug yourself, well, then you're out. I mean, imagine if you're an astronaut in outer space. You're floating. You have that little cord. Do they have a cord? I think they have a cord, right? Imagine if you're like, well, I don't want the cord anymore. I'm going to go wireless. New technology. You're out. You're done. You're floating. You're out. You're disconnected. How frightening. Now you're just hurtling through space. With that, you're gone. So God says, I'm going to create the world with midat hadin. That means strict justice, which means that there's a way this works and there's a protocol for this to work. And if you step out of line, that's it. You're out.
So no concept of children.
Right. Then he realized, and we have to understand, it's not like God's like, right? But this is like the way we're approximating the consideration. Then God realizes that like the glasses, it's going to break. This world is not sustainable, right? Once this is the protocol, then it's not a sustainable situation. This world is simply going to crack under the pressure of God's intense and perfect justice or judgment. Imagine if, I can't even imagine. I mean, I know I've never been, I know I'm going to shock everybody. I've never been in ballet. I know what you're thinking. What? You? But we've seen you in the tutu, whatever it's called. I know. And I'm shocking everybody right now. But my understanding is that in some of these activities or whatever, when you get to a professional level, if you make one mistake, oh boy, do they come after you, right? Right? They it's very intense. Very intense. Like one false move, you're off the team. You can't be said. Imagine a world run like this. I mean, in ballet, whatever. I don't know why I'm picking on ballet. Maybe it's in figure skating also. It's really competitive, right? Football, football also they scream, but I think there's a little more room for error over there. I think with every move is judged in ballet. I mean, every move, right, is it's got to be perfect. Got to be perfect. What do I know about ballet? Meanwhile, I'm an expert here, right? Whatever. Anyway, I don't mind pretending. So here's the thing. God saw if he ran the world like this, By the way, so many people have a desire to run things like this. You think, oh, when I have a family, that's it. We're going to have rules. We're going to have systems. That's it. You're not going to step out of line. Okay. All right. And what happens if someone does? You kick him out? Like, what's your plan? No, we have rules. But then what? With all the rules in the world, but then what? What's going to happen? What's going to happen if your child doesn't exactly do X, Y, or Z? What are you going to do?
Take his iPhone.
Take away his iPhone. And then you realize, Ra she'eino olam mitkayem. It's zelo kiyum. It can't sustain like this. What's going to happen? One infraction, you're out of the house. What's going to happen? You have a broken family. That's what's going to happen. You have broken glasses everywhere. Shattered glasses. Shattered glasses. You're going to pour hot liquid into these cups, into these fragile cups. They're all going to break. Not one of them is going to be standing. You're going to come down with such exactitude. You speak to these former athletes that were under this pressure. I mean, some of them, I guess, enjoyed it. They probably didn't enjoy the process. Maybe they did. I don't know. But a lot of them, you can break someone very easily like this. You can break someone very easily with that type of approach, with the strict and exacting, it's got to be perfect to my standard, right? You have some CEOs or bosses that were like that, or that are like that. And it becomes crushing. Now, many people have done their best work under that. And that's the intention. Obviously, there's a reason why God says, maybe let's do it like that. Because the end product might be perfect. And that sounds good. We're going to make the perfect phone. But how many people were crushed under the weight of that perfection by Steve Jobs or whoever it was, right? It's hard to work for someone like that. The end result might be perfect, but how many things broke along the way? So God says, you know what? We're not going to do it like that. No. So we're going to what if we did the other extreme? Cold water, meaning an infinitely long leash? No, leash sounds weird. An infinitely long tether, meaning you have as much allowance as you want. Whatever you want. Do whatever you want. You do this, it's good.
Leeway.
Huh?
Leeway.
Leeway. Yes. Infinitely long leeway. Whatever you want. You want to do this? Great. You want to do something else? Also great. Whatever you want. I will never tell you what I think you should do. Do whatever you want. Total permissiveness. Whatever you want to do is fine. What's going to happen? I don't know. It's not gonna look great.
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna end. No, but imagine if God says, it's fine. Also that. But then you're gonna end up with another type of broken world, meaning there's gonna be the other type of dysfunction, which means you're gonna have, right, exactly. It's gonna be chaos, anarchy. An anarchist society is a society with no rules. Let's blow up all the rules. So God says, well, what if we had no rules? If we have all the rules, if we create rules and we hold people accountable, like perfectly accountable, it's just crushing weight. So what if we take away all the rules and all accountability? You know what's going to happen? It's going to happen. Nothing's going to ever get done. Not only physically with work, but like spiritually, nothing's ever going to get done. And it's not going to look nice. In the words of the Medrash, it's going to look, the condensation, it's going to be all frosty. And again, you and I might say, great, I want frosty. That means it's cold. Give me a frosty beer. I don't want a lukewarm beer. Who drinks that? That's craziness. Give me some, I want to see the drip. But not at the King's Palace, bro. Not there. You don't want to pick up like, oh, okay, do you have a napkin? Can I get that? Like, I don't know what's going on here, but I feel like it got messy here. So that doesn't go in a perfectly maintained palace. It's not nice. So God says we can't do that either. What are we going to do? We'll mix the two together. We'll have rules. There will be accountability. But there's also going to be a little bit of understanding that people are people. People are not perfect. They need a little bit of leeway, a little bit of understanding, some second chances, tshuva, the ability to come back And that's how this is going to work. And that's the model. That's the model for life. Anyone who comes down hard, this is the way it's got to be. Good luck. Good luck. I want to see what's going to happen on the other side of it. With the family, with the company. Ultimately, I'm going to say, I wish you well. You're going to be breaking things. And breaking people is not a small thing. You don't want to break people. We're not here to break people. No one was put onto planet Earth to break someone else. That's not what God says. You give someone too much leeway, I don't know, you're raising a mensch. So where's the balance? You got to have beliefs. You got to have standards. There has to be accountability, but there can't be over the top also. It's got to be the right balance. That's what we struggle with in life, finding the right balance between chesed and gevurah, between love and discipline, right? We want our kids to learn the skills of life, to become a mensch, but at the same time, not to crush them with the weight of perfection, nor to allow them to run amok with no accountability. So then where's the balance? Everyone strikes it differently. What, you think God's any different? We're created in God's image. God also, according to the Medrash, God also, I'm not going to say the word struggled, I just did. God also worked this balance. What's the balance? God originally took out creation. We call that the Great Flood. God said, we're done here. I'm done. And then God restarted. And you know what God said after that? I'm not going to do that again. That level of gevurah, I'm not going to do again. That level of, if it's not right, everyone's out. Like, I'm going to blow this whole thing up. God says, I'm never going to do that again. Why? Ki yetzer ha'adam ra min urav. Because the nature of the human being is imperfect from the beginning. You know what he said when he was going to destroy the world? Same thing. It's the nature of man is bad. The same rationale he used to destroy, the same rationale he used to promise to never again destroy. You know what that means? It's not about the truth. It's about the perception. If you say,
he had to know that.
Huh?
When he created man, with free will, he had to know it was going to end up that way.
That's why we have to be careful on how we apply this to God. It's not like God made a mistake or whatever it is, but there's still this idea, at least the way we're walked through it, is the teaching us, right? You can the same truth. Somebody's working for you. They're not perfect. Do you get upset, or do you become more understanding? The same truth, but what does that cause you to do? That's in your control. Do you become frustrated by the imperfection, or do you become compassionate about the imperfection? That's a choice that we make. The facts on the ground about the other person, their strengths and weaknesses, that's a fact on the ground. But how do you interpret that? Do you say, well, they're imperfect, out? Or do you say, they're imperfect, I understand that. So they're not always going to get it right. I'm also not going to get things right. But how can we manage this relationship where it's going to work? That's a choice that we make. The Torah teaches us, Kabbalah teaches us how to make, hopefully, or the need to make healthier choices. For us, we can't control anyone else. But what we control is the temperature of the water that we're pouring in the cups. Are we looking to get people in hot water? Are we looking to get them in trouble? Are we looking to come down hard on them? Are we looking to give them all the leeway, all the allowance in the world? Or are we looking to hopefully find a healthy medium, healthy balance, somewhere in the middle? I don't even know how to end that because I literally said hopefully. So then that's the answer. The answer is C. The answer is the balance, somewhere in the middle. So on this special holiday weekend, I say special because, I don't know, my kids are excited. They go back to school on Tuesday. So on this holiday, which is actually, it's kind of amazing, right? You also, right? A long weekend. What a machaya, right? A long weekend. The kids are out Friday afternoon, 2:00. They end over here at least. 2:00 to Tuesday morning. 2 on Friday to Tuesday morning. Gewaldig. Unbelievable. Anyway, look, the bottom line is that wherever we are, whatever we're doing, whether it's family, whether it's business, whether it's within ourselves, we can talk about self-care the same way. How hard are we on ourselves? Do we demand perfection of self? If we're not perfect, do we beat ourselves up? Do we give ourselves leeway? Different people take different approaches. Some people are very hard on themselves and push themselves hard. Is that a bad thing? It's not a bad thing, but it can go too far. Some people give themselves all the leeway in the world. Some people, they never self-critique. So what's the best approach? Typically, as Rambam says, find the extremes and aim for the middle. Everyone's going to find a different middle, and that's the beauty of life. Everyone's going to find a different middle. I remember when we were dating, me and my friends. I'm gonna share with you, taking inside of Chabad dating. You ready? So everyone wants the same. All the guys want the same type of girl. Ready?
Right.
Chassidish, but down to earth. Same thing. Or chassidish, but with it. Like you want someone that's like Chabad, like into it, but also normal. I know, I've heard of the name, at least Tom Cruise. Like I know who this is. Chassidish, but down to earth. You know what? Everyone's got a different understanding of what that means.
But you got a good one.
Yes. The best. The best of the best. But here's the point. Everyone's got a different understanding of the middle. Because everyone's poles are a little bit different. So when you aim for the middle, depending on what your extremes are, like where are you, how chassidish are you will determine what your middle is. You with me? Anyway. All right. I don't mean to do a deep dive into Chabad dating of like 20 something years ago. But here we are. The point is, let's find the middle. Let's find the middle for ourselves, for our spouses, for our kids, for our coworkers, for our employees, right? For our community, for our world. The world doesn't work with gevurah. It sounds great. Perfection. Yeah, but life's not perfect. So then we're allowance. Okay, not too much either. Where? Somewhere in the middle. And that's the way it works. Thank you for joining me this morning for Kabbalah Café. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope y'all had some fun going through these concepts. We talked about, just to recap, we talked about Hillel and Shammai. We talked about Hanukkah menorahs and honeycombs. We spoke about, can you imagine what we talked about today? We talked about yeses and nos. We talked about lightning and thunder and sounds and sights. And then we talked about balance. It's important to find balance in life. All right.
Beautiful
Questions?
class. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Amazing.
Hey, Mariana. Great to see you.
The same.
Good to see you. Give my best. Give my love to everybody, please.
Thank you. Thank you. The same to you and the family.
Thank you. Thank you. Frank and David and Joy and Alex. Good to see you guys. Shavua Tov. Enjoy the holiday. See you guys.
Shavua Tov.